Coming up, the four-state community gathers in Mercy Park to mourn the loss of a 2-year-old girl and her mother.
It's a warm Tuesday start, but thunderstorms are on the horizon. We'll break down the rest of our week from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Webb City wants voters to approve an $11 million bond for improvements to a high school and middle school.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's go to Michael Hayslip in the Skywatch Weather Center.
Tell you what, Tanya, temperature's hard to beat. We even got a 60 already on the board. 61 right now in Welch. We still have the majority of high 40s throughout southwest Missouri, 49 in both Lamar and Carthage, and even 44 in Monette and Cassville. 51 right now in Joplin, 55 in Miami. Still, that's hard to beat as far as temperature-wise go this early in the morning in a late March. Skywatch Storm Tracker shows the cloud system that's moved in from the south. That's also going to bring us our fair amount of thunderstorm activity. Now, it's not going to happen until tonight. As we see everything beginning down there at the Red River, this thing is not going to be in one bit of a hurry. So we've got the majority of our day that is actually going to be a little bit of a warm one as our winds continue to come in at double digits, still clocking in at 16 miles per hour at Martin Johnson Airport in Chanute. Weather trend for today up into the mid 70s. That's right, mid 70s. So it's going to be windy, partly cloudy, and warm. Then we get ready for tonight. And as we continue to roll through, we'll see a scattered raindrop or two every now and then for the afternoon hours. But we really don't get going until, say, about 9, 10 o'clock tonight. And once we do, that's going to be the heavy rain, thunder, and lightning coming with it. And that's going to take us all the way, not only from Wednesday morning. Look at the time frame here as it continues to backbuild out to the west of us and roll through all the way really until the late afternoon hours before it's said and done Wednesday evening. Flooding still going to be a concern, along with high winds and slight possibility of hail. Temperatures will drop on Wednesday as well, down to the 30s for an overnight low before we rebound, get back to the 50s on Thursday. And then after we get a little break on Thursday, we're going to re-road and roll rain Friday night into Saturday. Temperatures stabilizing though. We'll go mid 60s and low 60s there for Friday and Saturday.
All right. Hey, not bad temperatures. I mean, we got that one dip on Wednesday.
I just want everybody apprised of tonight, especially if you have to be out and about on the roads. And let's get ready for the Wednesday morning commute already and anticipate some localized flooding.
There you go. Be ready for it.
Yep.
Thanks, Michael. Community mourns the tragic loss of a mother and her 2-year-old daughter. The four states gathered in Joplin's Mercy Park last night to say goodbye to 27-year-old Taylor Shute and her 2-year-old daughter, Kessie Crawford, who were killed Saturday night during a standoff in Baxter Springs, Kansas. The prayer vigil for Shute and her daughter took place at 7:30. All members of the public were allowed to attend. Later in the show, we're going to take a full look at the vigil, the community turnout, and the family reaction. A Joplin man is going to prison after a drunk driving crash leads to an injury. A witness says 46-year-old Joshua Goodhue was driving more than 80 miles an hour on Rangeline when his car crashed in December of 2020. Passenger was seriously hurt. Goodhue pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated, and the judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Cold weather rule is coming to an end this week in Kansas and Missouri starting Friday, April 1st. Any residents who are behind on electric and natural gas utility bills could be subject to disconnection of service. The cold weather rule goes into effect in several states from November 1st through March 31st. It's designed to prevent utility shutoffs during the coldest parts of the year. Oklahoma's policy does not have a set time frame. In the sooner, state utility companies cannot disconnect customers if temperatures are 32 degrees or below during the day, or 20 or below at night, or if the predicted heat index is 101 degrees or greater. Webb City R7 School District is asking voters to approve an $11 million school bond. The bond would fund improvements at the high school, including renovations of science classrooms, construction of a virtual learning lab, and a new family and consumer sciences classroom, and renovations of the Cardinal Theater. It would also fund the construction of an ADA compliant outdoor space for PE classes at the middle school.
Actually, they're in the junior high right now, so consecutively it's coming our way. Now, I can tell you that the classes that are coming up are very similar in those class sizes, and we already know that we have housing being developed in the district right now that is going to continue to add to that.
If approved, the district's current tax levy would stay the same. This bond will be decided next week, April 5th. Americans everywhere are feeling the pinch at the pump as fuel prices continue to rise. The trucking industry in particular is feeling the effects. American Trucking Association says more than 70% of freight is transported via trucks. So high fuel costs can lead to higher prices everywhere. Joplin-based CFI has nearly 4,000 trucks, so they've found ways to lessen the burden of fuel cost.
Yeah, it definitely is impacting all consumers at this point in time. Being a large trucking company with nearly 3,700 trucks in our fleet today, we do feel the impacts. The good and the bad of it is we do have fuel surcharge programs in play to help offset those expenses.
The company is also buying 750 fuel-efficient tractors this year to lessen their carbon footprint and save on fuel. Trustees who oversee the Kansas Public Employee Retirement System voted to halt future investments in Russian assets because of the country's invasion of Ukraine. And while some board members initially pushed for a full divestment, others said they would rather focus on the future and noted the fund's current holdings in the country have been largely liquidated anyway. Kansas has $36 million invested in Russian equities as of February 25th. That accounts for about 1.4% of the pension fund's total investments. Well, if you can, show small businesses some love today. That's because it's National Mom and Pop Business Owners Day. According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, there are more than 27 million small businesses in the country. These small mom and pop shops and restaurants are a critical part of our economy. Many may be closed amid the coronavirus crisis, but if a small business is open in your area, show them your appreciation by shopping there. If they're not open, you might still be able to buy a gift card online to use later. Also, word of mouth advertising is some of the best. You can share your favorite small businesses on your social media page to help improve their following. Use hashtag MomPopBusinessOwnersDay. It's 5:07.
High wind warnings and red flag warnings throughout southeast Kansas today, an indicator of coming in from the south 25-30 miles per hour, along with a very low humidity. And as we put future track into motion, mid-70s later on this afternoon. Delightful temperatures for our Tuesday, albeit a windy one. Then we get ready for tonight, especially after we turn the clock past midnight. Here we go, thunderstorms working in from the west and the south. Get a combination of the high wind, heavy rain, localized flooding, and slight chance for even some hail. A little bit cooler on the backside of it. Let's just be prepared for tonight into tomorrow morning.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, a former Cardinal is headed back to the Redbirds after a 10-year absence. Plus, we'll introduce you to a unique cheer team that's getting ready to take on the world. And flu cases are on the rise in the U.S. We'll tell you why this is an unusual time for the increase. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Opening night for the Frontenac High School baseball team. Raiders on the road. Little interstate matchup to start the schedule, facing the Nevada Tigers. Frontenac coming off a regional championship and third place finish at state last season. Scoreless until the top of the fifth. Logan Myers rips one into right center field. Here comes Lane Sullivan as Myers drives in two last night. Did the damage in the sixth inning as Colin McCartney gaps one into left center. All the way to the fence. Mario Mangini and Jeremy Rayo come in to score. 3-0 now Raiders. A few minutes later, here comes Sullivan again. Turns, pulls it into the left field corner. RBI double. Scores Cale Turlip and makes it 4-0. Mangini also had a 2-run double in the sixth. The Raiders put up 7 runs in that inning alone and win the season opener over Nevada 8-1.
For the first time out, there was a lot of good things we'll take from it. I feel like we beat a good ball club tonight, and our bats came alive a little bit. We played good defense behind our pitchers. I thought our pitchers threw well. They competed. They were in the zone. You know, there's some things we got to clean up, and you always find those things after game one. And one of the things is backwards Ks. I mean, we got to give ourselves a chance. We've got some good hitters, and we got to give ourselves a chance. We've got 2 strikes on us.
Stay in the SEK as it's opening day for Galena at home against the Independence Bulldogs. It's Indy striking first. Ryan Leiker hammers it to center. Great effort, but it gets by. Davis Merrick scores. Independence gets 2 in the top of the first inning. Bottom half, leadoff man Brett Sarwinski, Oppo with 2 strikes. Double for Sarwinski, and he would score a couple batters later. It's 2-2 after 1 inning. Both pitchers then getting to work. Kenyon Martin. Ho-ho! Gotcha! Sarwinski with the tag. Bottom half, Leiker on the mound for Independence. See ya, and see you. Leiker had 10 strikeouts last night. And he scores 5 in the 5th, 5 in the 7th. Rolls by Galena 13-5. Kansas Jayhawks back in the Final Four in the NCAA tournament. Jayhawks beat Miami in the Elite 8 to return to the national semifinals for the first time since 2018. Now, KU got off to a little bit of a slow start. Down 6 points at halftime. Then in the second half just blew out Miami. They had 3 guys in double figures. Ochai Agbaji, he had 18. Here is KU head coach Bill Self on the team's momentum headed into the Final Four.
One thing that has given us a little confidence is, I mean, we had a pretty good team this year, and we shared the league and then won the tournament, and we kind of shared the league without having the opportunity to play Remy, and so I think Remy and his core always knew what he was capable to do to help us, but we haven't really seen it yet because health hasn't allowed it. And I think that our guys have more of a swagger now, knowing what Remy can do to make us better.
He is perhaps the greatest right-handed hitter of the generation, and he's a St. Louis Cardinal. It's Albert Pujols. The 42-year-old Pujols agreeing to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal to go back to the St. Louis Cardinals. Of course, he played for them from 2001 to 2011, and in those 11 years, hit 445 of his 679 career home runs and helped the team win 2 World Series titles. Pujols spent most of the last 10 years with almost called them the California Angels, with the Los Angeles Angels. He was released and then signed by the LA Dodgers in the middle of last season. Pujols, 10-time All-Star and a 3-time league MVP. And actually already with the team for his first spring training game against Houston. In the first inning, Michael Brantley, get you some. Oh, Waino trying to turn that curveball over. Adam Wainwright gives up the home run. 1-0 Astros. Wainwright settled in after that. He would have 5 innings. That ain't bad for a spring training debut right there. 2 earned, 3 strikeouts. In the 4th, Yordan Alvarez. Dude can hit, by the way. Solo home run of his own. Not a whole lot of offense. Astros do win it 2-1, but of course the main story being Albert being back. Kansas City Royals also on the field. Spring training matchup against the Cleveland Guardians. Another one I'm going to have to get used to. Royals, 19-9 final, I guess, pitching optional. Andrew Benintendi, 2 for 5, 2 home runs, 5 driven in. KC 6-3 now in spring training. Still to come on the KOM Morning News, Ukrainian soldiers turn to drone technology to hunt down Russian forces. And a check on our 7-day forecast when the KOM Morning News returns. Touch past 517, good enough for a little weather on the 7th. Live look over 7th and range line. Very, very comfortable, very, very warm actually for a late March, early morning. 51 degrees is where we stand right now in Joplin. We've seen some mid-40s out there just south of I-44. Throughout most of southeast Kansas, pressing up close to 60 there. Neodesha and Independence. Miami sits at 65. Welch already chiming in at 61, and even to the north, up in Fort Scott and Nevada, already at 58 degrees. Of course, the wind will continue to pour in today, leading us to some wind advisories for our counties in tan, and then out in the far western portion of southeast Kansas, red flag warnings. So that's an indicator that the farther west that you go, not only does the wind pick up, but also too the humidity goes down. Red flag warning, of course, meaning We talk about elevated fire conditions. That means don't burn anything when you get in the red flag warning. As we see the jet stream come in off the Pacific right there, right up through the southwest, grab that warmth and feed it right our way. There's the little hump there of the warmer air. And luckily, we are going to be the recipients of that today. It's going to be delightful. We'll work up into the mid-70s before the thunderstorms actually begin to head our way. Now, one thing that we will see for today, look at that, we're in between that 20 to 30 mile an hour range, especially out to the west. That's actually in between that 30 and 40 mile an hour marker. So as we get ready to roll for tonight, really after we get closer to midnight, afternoon, evening going to be okay. And then as we turn into Wednesday, here we go. We're going to get some heavy rain to go along with the thunder and the lightning, get some localized flooding, and as it continues to roll through, last us for the Wednesday morning commute as well. That's why I want everybody to be on their toes, especially for that flooding if you leave before sunrise tomorrow, because our severe thunderstorm risk map still putting us in that low category. Haven't seen hardly any movement as far as geographically in that low category, an indicator that the high wind and even the possibility for hail still exist. And since it has been pretty stagnant as far as, like I said, the geographic location on the severe thunderstorm risk map, we can go ahead and say a good probability of that wind and, like I said, slight chance for hail. Turn our attention now to the KOAM Facebook page and our Insta poll. Countdown is on for one cheer squad coming out of the state of Wisconsin. They're practicing for a chance to show their talents to the world. Got a competition coming up at the end of next month, but as Annie Krall shows us, for this team with special needs, it's about so much more than competition.
This special needs cheer team, Legacy, is the only competitive cheer abilities team in Wisconsin, not to mention champions of their competitive division in 2021, which earned them a trip to Orlando, Florida.
It was fun because I forgot what it was like to be on an airplane. But the funny thing is because my friend Tara, she was squeezing my hand so hard that I'm like, after we got off, I'm like, do I even still have my hand?
The Fusion Athletics All-Star Special Needs Cheerleading Team won this first place trophy at last year's Cheerleading Worlds in Orlando, Florida. They're going back this year, and coaches say it's going to be even more memorable considering there were COVID-19 restrictions and smaller gatherings last year.
It is literally the highlight of my whole career. Last year when I got to watch them, I looked like a lunatic just crying the whole entire time that I missed my cue to unplug the iPad and stop the music because I was standing there crying. It is so much pride and joy to watch them find a place that they fit in, a home where they have friends, that they're just regular kids and they get to showcase their talents.
The team of 12 includes cheerleaders with a range of abilities.
We have a little bit of everything, from kids on the autism spectrum to Down syndrome to different birth defects. We have an athlete that is hearing impaired, so just a little bit of everything.
While each brings something unique to the team, when they hit the floor and perform, coaches say they become a synchronized unit.
5, 6, 7, move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
What's fun about the cheer team?
I can be friends.
Your friends are your favorite?
Yeah.
We've also made it a really big effort to involve the kids that we have who have wheelchairs to make sure that they're involved just as much as anybody else. So we have a really unique way of stunting that really involves them, so everyone partakes in it.
World competition set for April 23rd through the 25th. Our question for you this morning on the KOAM News Now Insta poll is, do you compete in anything? You can go straight to the poll, KOAMNewsNow.com/vote, or connect to us via our Facebook page. Be back with Health Watch next.
Topping Health Watch this morning, as new COVID-19 case numbers continue to drop in the U.S., cases of the flu and hospitalizations are rising, and the increase is coming at an unusual time this year. Mandy Gaither has more on why the flu may be spreading now.
In the U.S., the CDC says flu season typically peaks between December and February, but in many parts of the country, flu activity is now climbing.
The flu's not a joke. People still die from the flu.
The latest numbers from the CDC show flu cases are rising in most places across the U.S., but are still lower than pre-pandemic seasons. Still, this season, the CDC estimates there have been at least 3.1 million flu cases, 31,000 hospitalizations, and around 1,800 deaths. The highest levels of flu recorded right now in the central and south central regions of the country, where some schools have had to cancel classes due to the surge of cases. This comes after a nearly non-existent flu season last year.
The COVID virus is a respiratory virus also. So the measures that have been useful and helpful decreasing transmission of that virus have also played some impact on the influenza virus.
Emergency medicine Dr. Daniel Bachman with Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center says the rise in cases could be because many of those public health measures like masking and social distancing are being relaxed. He says it could also be the natural flow of the virus itself and says it's not too late to get a flu shot. You can also help slow the spread if you develop symptoms.
If you have those symptoms, then try to limit your exposure to other people.
You can also lower your risk of getting the flu by washing your hands frequently, not touching your nose and eyes, and you can also wear a mask to help limit spread if you have flu symptoms. The Biden administration is expected to give Americans over 50 the option to have a second COVID booster shot. The New York Times is reporting that decision could come as early as next week. The FDA's Vaccine Advisory Committee was expected to consider the additional booster shot proposal on April 6th, but new data from Israel provides new evidence that a fourth coronavirus vaccine offers enhanced protection against severe illness. Experts say technically a fourth dose is currently available for anyone who says they need one because they are immunocompromised. The action by the White House would not amount to an official second booster recommendation, but would give everyone over 50 the option. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. Coming up, the four-state community gathers in Mercy Park to mourn the loss of a 2-year-old girl and her mother.
We've got a warm afternoon ahead of us before thunderstorms arrive and carry us into the middle of the week. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Webb City wants voters to approve an $11 million bond for improvements to a high school and middle school.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5:32. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a little bit. But first, let's go to the forecast where we've got changes headed our way.
Yeah, but before we get there, it's still going to be a delightful, if not warm, afternoon as we find ourselves over 7th and Rangeline. Relatively quiet. Our daily almanac for this 29th day of March, we put our average high excuse me, at 64 degrees. And look at this. Already chiming in with 60s down throughout northeast Oklahoma. Joplin sits at a very comfortable 51, 57 in Neodesha and Independence. A little bit cooler when you get south of I-44, 45 right now in Monette, 46 in Cassville. Cloud cover has moved in. We'll go with actually mostly cloudy skies today. The thing is, it happened overnight. Trapped in some of that heat that we had from yesterday. So combo the trapped warmth along with a good southeasterly breeze that's coming in at 15 to 20 miles per hour, and it's going to lift us up into the mid-70s here later on this afternoon. But of course, here's the big development that Tanya was alluding to. That's what transpires late tonight into early on Wednesday. We're going to have thunderstorm activity as this system works in from the west. Going to get some heavy rain that's going to lead to localized flooding, also to high winds and even the possibility of hail to go along with the thunder and the lightning. 7-day forecast. We're going to be on our toes tonight for some severe thunderstorm warnings for Tuesday into Wednesday morning. And look at those temperatures also dropping down to the 40s on Wednesday. A little bit of a rebound on Thursday. Then we're going to reload with additional rainfall headed our way for Friday into Saturday.
All right, thanks, Michael. A Joplin man is going to prison after a drunk driving crash leads to an injury. A witness says 46-year-old Joshua Goodhue was driving more than 80 miles an hour on Rangeline when his car crashed in December of 2020. Passenger was seriously hurt. Goodhue pleads guilty to driving while intoxicated, and the judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Four-state community came together last night to mourn the loss of a 2-year-old girl and her mother. 27-year-old Taylor Shute and her daughter, Kessie Crawford, were killed during a standoff in Baxter Springs Saturday evening between authorities and the child's father. KOAM's Shannon Becker attended the vigil and has more.
The family invited the community to gather with them at the top of Mercy Park tonight for a community vigil to remember the mother and daughter. More than 100 people gathered to pray, listen to songs, cry, and lean on each other in this difficult time. Family says it meant a lot.
We weren't sure who all would show up, and that's fine as long as we had people here just covering us in prayer and strength, and the turnout just completely blew our minds. And it just means a lot that even if they didn't know Cleslin and Taylor, they still came out to show their support and love and prayers.
Services for the two who were killed on Saturday night in Baxter Springs have yet to be announced. The investigation has been handed over to the KBI. The family have created a GoFundMe to help with funeral expenses, and we have a link to that on our website at KOAM News Now. At the top of Mercy Park in Joplin, I'm Shannon Becker for KOAM News Now.
Authorities say the suspect in that standoff, 37-year-old Eli Crawford, also died. Webb City R7 School District is asking voters to approve an $11 million school bond. The bond would fund improvements at the high school, including renovations of science classrooms, construction of a virtual learning lab, and a new family and consumer sciences classroom, and renovations of the Cardinal Theater. It would also fund the construction of an ADA-compliant outdoor space for PE classes at the middle school.
Actually, they're in the junior high right now, so consecutively, it's coming our way. Now, I can tell you that the classes that are coming up are very similar in those class sizes, and we already know that we have housing being developed in the district right now that is going to continue to add to that.
If approved, the district's current tax levy would stay the same. The bond will be decided next week on April 5th. Cold weather rule is coming to an end this week in Kansas and Missouri. Starting Friday, April 1st, any residents who are behind on electric and natural gas utility bills could be subject to disconnection of service. The cold weather rule goes into effect in several states from November 1st through March 31st. It's designed to prevent utility shutoffs during the coldest parts of the year. Oklahoma's policy does not have a set time frame. In the Sooner State, utility companies cannot disconnect customers if temperatures are 32 degrees or below during the day or 20 or below at night, or if the predicted heat index is 101 degrees or greater. Here is Michael with a look at your forecast.
No, I don't have to worry about any chilly weather today, that is for sure. Our temperatures are going to be in the mid-70s later this afternoon. But then, as everything works in from the west, here come the thunderstorms. And as they do with the thunder and lightning, get some bouts of heavy rain to the point where we do show up on the severe thunderstorm risk map. As a matter of fact, look at even the marginal category and even just the plain thunderstorms that last really all the way from the west coast to the Great Lakes. So this is a rather impressive system. And we find ourselves right in the midst of it in that low category. But once again, that even gives us a slight chance for some hail. 7-day forecast with temperatures that drop on Wednesday all the way down to the 40s. Just kind of stabilize our temperatures a little bit after that. And then additional rainfall for Friday into Saturday.
All right. This morning we are discussing competition. Now, Wisconsin can lay claim to a very special cheer team. Just happens to be one of the best in the world. The 12 members of this team include kids on the autism spectrum to Down syndrome to the hearing impaired. And they bring their unique characteristics together to form a synchronized unit that is truly something special. The kids on this team love the competition, but for them, it's more than that. It's a chance to see the world and meet new people. It's also a chance to make some really good friends. Now, our question, we want to know if you compete in anything, or maybe
right now 84% Tanya say no. Yeah, well, and that's the great thing about the Insta polls. We watch it change right there, live on air. Right now we got 14% in video games, and well, there we go, another change. 12% in sports, 12% in trivia, and 64% not feeling it this morning.
I feel like as the morning progresses, we'll get more video games. I'm surprised there's no board games on there. I've had some competitive family challenges of board games, yes. There are certain family members that we don't invite to the competition anymore.
The wise one and I would combine board games and trivia.
Yeah, you could, yeah, especially.
And eventually she gave up playing checkers on me. Or not checkers, dominoes.
Because you just were not.
Just got tired of losing, yeah.
Oh, you got tired of losing?
No. That was the problem.
Well, if you never, you probably weren't.
Therein lies the problem.
How good of a sport are you after you win, too?
Very good.
Okay, that's good.
Because the only way to encourage somebody to play again is to be a good sport.
I figured it was like, hey, double your money.
No, I'm not playing for money.
Not all the time, anyway. All right, thanks, Michael.
No, that's called degenerate gambling.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. All right, we'll meet a school bus driver in Virginia who's being hailed a hero for saving the lives of 20 students from a burning bus. Plus, the war in Ukraine continues to take its bloody toll, and funerals have become a daily occurrence. We'll take a closer look at how Ukrainians are bearing this somber weight. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Ukrainian forces used drones to hunt for Russian columns west of Kyiv. Ukrainian forces have regained control of the frontline town of Makariv in the Kyiv region, but Russian troops have not stopped trying to retake it. Makariv is small in size, but it has big strategic value as it blocks Russia's armed forces from encircling the capital. Ukrainian volunteer fighters have used drones in the area for reconnaissance that can be used by Ukrainian artillery units to strike back. Kyiv residents have endured more Russian shelling. Video from last week shows civilians cleaning up the damage. One woman whose home was damaged by shelling made an appeal to her godmother in Moscow, saying she must see that Russian forces have been hitting civilian targets despite denials by the Kremlin. Another man says his car was damaged in the attack. Since Russia's war in Ukraine began, thousands of Ukrainians have been killed, both soldiers and civilians. And for those left behind, the agony of burying loved ones lost to an unprovoked invasion is profoundly painful. Ben Weidman gives us a somber view of one family's unbearable grief.
Lord, have mercy, goes the hymn's refrain. Another family drinks of war's bitter dredges. 47-year-old Yuri Solemka died on the 18th of March from wounds sustained in the frontline city of Mykolaiv. His mother, Lyudmila, struggles through the ceremony. Every day there's another funeral during this time of death, destruction, and displacement. These are indeed the times that try a people's soul. Yuri was a volunteer, not a regular soldier. He was given full military honors. Beyond the customs of respect for a man who died in battle for a nation at war lies the trauma of the woman who brought him into this world. There can be nothing more painful for a mother than to attend the funeral of her child. A son killed in a war not of his choosing. He decided on his own to join the army, says Lyudmila. He hadn't told me. He was a good father and a good son. Says his sister Yelena, he was always a man of his word. Yuri's lies with other freshly dug graves. After a month of this conflict, no one really knows how many soldiers and civilians have been killed. The only thing of which anyone can be certain is that only the dead have seen the end of war. Before this funeral ends, preparations begin for the next. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. We'll be right back with the news you need to know before you head out the door. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. 4 states gathered in Joplin's Mercy Park last night to say goodbye to 27-year-old Taylor Shute and her 2-year-old daughter, Kessie Crawford, who were killed Saturday night during a standoff in Baxter Springs. Prayer vigil for Shute and her daughter took place at 7:30, and all members of the public were allowed to attend. Americans everywhere are feeling the pinch at the pump as fuel prices continue to rise. The trucking industry in particular is feeling the effects. American Trucking Association says more than 70% of freight is transported via trucks, so high fuel costs can lead to higher prices elsewhere. Joplin-based CFI has nearly 4,000 trucks, so they've found ways to lessen the burden of fuel costs. The company is also buying 750 fuel-efficient tractors this year to lessen their carbon footprint and save on fuel. Pittsburgh Community Child Care Learning Center is celebrating 50 years of educating kids. The center offers child care for kids between 1-year-old and kindergarten. On Monday, they hosted an event for community members and former students and families to look back on all the history. Officials say the center was the first child care center in Pittsburgh. The center is at 502 East 20th Street in Pittsburgh. And the Safe House Crisis Center in Pittsburgh is hosting their 11th annual Bags to Riches online fundraiser. Items up for auction include purses, jewelry, and signed Chiefs memorabilia. Also, pictures of local dogs are on their website, and you can vote for your favorite. All proceeds from the fundraiser will support the women in the shelter. The auction runs through April 5th. You can find a link to the auction on our website, koamnewsnow.com. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Temperatures working up into the 70s later on this afternoon. Going to be a great afternoon, albeit a windy one. And then for tonight, here it comes. Starts about 10, 11 o'clock out to the western portion of southeast Kansas overnight. From, say, 12 to 3 is when it will approach across the state line into southwest Missouri, northeast Oklahoma. Heavy, heavy rain with thunder and lightning lasting us all the way into Wednesday morning. And look at our temperatures. It's going to drop down to the 40s. Going to be a chilly one after the thunderstorms overnight. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
A Virginia school bus driver is hailed a hero after she safely evacuated 20 students before her bus caught on fire on the way to school. Leandra Head spoke with that bus driver and with some very grateful students and parents.
I just had to get them off that bus. That's what I was determined to do, you know, because when I saw the smoke and I'm like, this smoke and then with the smell.
Surrey County Public School bus driver Sandra Artis didn't know her day would turn upside down when her bus went up in flames.
As I got close to Highway 31, I started to smell something. So one of my little boys, he came and said, Miss Artis, are you okay? I guess I had a look on my face.
She didn't want to alarm her students and kept calm as she was taking her students to school.
And I wiped the window and I said, well, is that steam or smoke? You know, I didn't say it where he could hear it at. So, but as I went to turn out on 31 and pressed on the gas, more came out and this scent was so powerful.
The bus driver pulled into this church parking lot at the St. Paul Holiness Church when she smelled smoke coming from her bus. Her students then evacuated the bus.
I need all my high school and middle school to go out the back door, all of my elementary out the front door. When the door is open, everybody move quickly.
One student on the bus says he's glad he and the other 19 students got off safely.
My heart was just like racing and I was like trying to worry about getting off the bus.
The students are thankful for Mrs. Artis.
Our bus driver, she helped us and she's a very good bus driver. We all love her.
She deserves a reward. Yeah. All I have to say is if it wasn't for her, a lot of stuff could have went down that day.
This parent says she rushed from work to get to her daughter.
Very scary. I felt like I was having a panic attack. Like I couldn't breathe. I just wanted to get to my daughter. Thank God for Miss Artist and the man above. Thank you, Lord.
Artist says her faith kept her strong through it all.
On the way back, and I looked over at that church, and all I could say was, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. All my babies were safe. But my big baby, my bus is gone.
Wow. Artist has been a bus driver for 19 years. She says she's never seen anything like this before. Quick thinking on her part. We'll be back with another look at your forecast after this.
Pretty mild temperatures for early March morning, as we've got 51 right now in Joplin, as high as 61 in portions of northeast Oklahoma. A little bit cooler throughout southwest Missouri, where we stand in the mid-40s right now. Big factor is what develops here overnight. We'll get into the 70s this afternoon. But then as we head toward midnight, here come the thunderstorms as they work in from the west. It is going to be full of some heavy bouts of rain, thunder, and lightning. Also, too, check out our temperatures as we steadily drop down to the 40s on Wednesday. A little bit of a rebound there with additional rainfall headed our way for Friday into Saturday, and back right after this.
The 4 states' most watched news starts.
Coming up, the 4 states honor the lives of a mother and her 2-year-old daughter in Mercy Park.
Be able to cruise past our average high for this time of year. Temperatures up into the mid-70s later on before the thunderstorms arrive overnight. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Webb City looks to voters to approve an $11 million bond for improvements on a middle and high school.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, let's go to Michael Hayslip in the Skywatch Weather Center.
Mild morning over 7th and Rangeline, Tanya. Temperatures 51 right now in Joplin, 59 in Parsons, 45 in Monett. So we've got quite the variety there, about a 15-degree difference. Cloud cover did trap in some of that warmth that we absorbed yesterday. No precipitation to speak of for the time being. That will change as we approach midnight, with still a good south-southeasterly wind coming in at 15 to 20 miles per hour. Weather trend is going to be able to lift us up into the mid-70s later on today. We do have wind advisories for southeast Kansas, red flag warnings for our far western counties as well. After a delightful afternoon, we get ready for the thunderstorms to work in overnight. Really about 10, 11 o'clock is when we'll see them form out to the west. For those of you in the central portion of the 4 states, really looking at probably, say about, let's go 2 to about 6 a.m. as these roll through. And we're going to see some rounds of very, very heavy rain to go along with the thunder and the lightning. Now, we also have the chance for hail as well. High winds, well, that's going to be a given because we're already in the midst of those, and this is going to last until Wednesday afternoon. When we get to the 7-day forecast here, you're going to see the alert day pop up, because not only do we have the wind advisory for today and the red flag warning, but also, too, we are going to stay on our toes for severe thunderstorm warnings that very well could appear overnight through Wednesday as our temperatures then drop down to the 40s.
The community mourns the tragic loss of a mother and her 2-year-old daughter. 4 states has gathered in Joplin's Mercy Park, gathered last night to say goodbye to 27-year-old Taylor Shute and her 2-year-old daughter, Kessie Crawford, who were killed Saturday night during a standoff in Baxter Springs, Kansas. Prayer vigil for Shute and her daughter took place at 7:30. All members of the public were allowed to attend. A Joplin man is going to prison after a drunk driving crash leads to an injury. A witness says 46-year-old Joshua Goodhue was driving more than 80 miles an hour on Rangeline when his car crashed in December of 2020. Passenger was seriously hurt. Goodhue pled guilty to driving while intoxicated, and the judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Webb City R7 School District is asking voters to approve an $11 million school bond. The bond would fund improvements at the high school, including renovations of science classrooms, construction of a virtual learning lab, and a new family and consumer sciences classroom, and renovations of the Cardinal Theater. It would also fund the construction of an ADA-compliant outdoor space for PE classes at the middle school.
Actually, they're in the junior high right now, so consecutively it's coming our way. Now, I can tell you that the classes that are coming up are significant, are very similar in those class sizes, and we already know that we have housing being developed within the district right now that is going to continue to add to that.
If approved, the district's current tax levy would stay the same. This bond will be decided next week on April 5th. Pittsburgh Community Child Care Center is celebrating 50 years of educating kids. The center offers child care for kids between 1-year-old and kindergarten. And on Monday, they hosted an event for community members and former students and families to look back on all of the history. Officials say the center was the first child care center in Pittsburgh.
Exciting. I feel like, that's a milestone to be the first child care center in Pittsburgh and to still be here and be going strong. We have a long waiting list, and so we're definitely needed, and the child care is definitely needed in the community.
Center is at 502 East 20th Street in Pittsburgh. Safe House Crisis Center in Pittsburgh is hosting their 11th annual Bags to Riches online fundraiser. There are several items up for auction, including purses, jewelry, and signed Chiefs memorabilia. The center also has pictures of local dogs on their website, and you can vote for your favorite. All proceeds from the fundraiser will support the women in the shelter.
Community supporting our fundraising efforts, but they're also supporting our agency, and they're also really supporting the victims we're serving.
The auction runs through April 5th. You can find a link to the auction on our website at koamnewsnow.com. Well, today in history, back in 1971, Lieutenant William Calley is found guilty of My Lai murders. Lieutenant William Calley was found guilty of premeditated murder of the My Lai at a U.S. Army court-martial at Fort Benning, Georgia. He was a platoon leader and led his men to massacre Vietnamese civilians, including women and children. My Lai on March 16, 1968. The unit had been conducting a search and destroy mission to locate the 48th Viet Cong Local Force Battalion. They entered the village and only found women, children, and older men. Frustrated by unanswered losses due to snipers and mines, they took it out on the villagers, shooting them indiscriminately as they ran in terror. The survivors were then gathered up and led to a nearby ditch where they were shot. Calley was charged with 6 specifications of premeditated murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, but only served a third of a 10-year sentence.
Corporal Ernest Medina was then acquitted of any war crimes in connection with that as part of that battalion.
All aspects of war. You need to learn and remember all of them.
70s later on this afternoon. Thunderstorms moving in from the west overnight. Going to bring us some heavy rain, thunder, lightning, high winds today. We've got high wind warnings, wind advisories, I should say, for southeast Kansas, red flag warnings. The big thing, though, is the localized flooding that we're going to have with the thunder and the lightning. Also, too, slight chance of hail with temperatures dropping down to the 40s by Wednesday.
And that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, Ice-T gives people on Twitter the Special Victims Unit treatment as he reports a crime, one we're all too familiar with. Plus, Congress sets out to review President Biden's budget today, and there's new research out about how having the flu and COVID is dangerous. We'll have all the details. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, the U.S. federal budget affects your life more than you might think. It could impact your energy bill or your community's law enforcement. Each year, the president drafts the budget and sends it to Congress for revisions. Lawmakers are scheduled to begin discussing President Joe Biden's 2023 budget today. Amy Kiley looks at what's in it and how President Biden hopes to pay for it.
Congressional hearings on next year's federal budget are taking off. A House committee is scheduled to look over President Joe Biden's plan today.
The budget I'm releasing today sends a clear message to the American people that what we value.
Here are some of the highlights. Biden wants more funding for NASA. It could put the first woman and person of color on the moon and prepare for human exploration of Mars someday. He also wants to increase funding to combat the opioid epidemic, and
We still spend what we need to spend to continue to fight COVID, but those expenditures will be dramatically less than last year.
his plan has money for crime prevention, law enforcement, and defense spending. Republicans say funding for that last item isn't enough.
Putin and Xi will sleep more soundly at night if the Biden administration gets its way on defense funding than if Republicans get ours.
Biden also wants to improve the supply chain and domestic manufacturing and favor clean energy. To pay for all that, he wants to restore some corporate taxes Republicans chopped in 2017. He'd like to increase income tax for people who are worth more than $100 million. And he wants them to pay for unrealized capital gains. Those occur when things like stocks increase in value even before people sell them. Moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin says he's skeptical about that idea.
No matter how wealthy they are, they should have to pay. Everyone should pay, but not penalized to the point to where it doesn't make sense.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Plans for statues honoring former Supreme Court Justices Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg are moving forward. The House voted 349 to 63 to approve a Senate bill calling for the statues to be placed in the Capitol or on the Capitol grounds. Senator Amy Klobuchar sponsored the original measure. It passed the Senate by unanimous vote back in December and now heads to President Joe Biden's desk. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a beloved liberal voice on the court until she died in 2020. Sandra Day O'Connor is still alive, 17 years after she retired in 2005. She typically sided with conservatives and became the first woman to serve as a justice in 1981. Officials in New York State government and Erie County have reached a deal with the Buffalo Bills for a new stadium. New York taxpayers will cover $600 million of the $1.4 billion project, with $250 million coming from Erie County taxpayers. The Bills and the NFL are putting up $550 million. The new 60,000-seat stadium will be built across the street from the Bills' current home stadium, which was deemed too expensive to renovate. The deal marks the largest public commitment to an NFL facility. New York Governor Kathleen Hochul says it should provide good dividends, though, because it keeps the team in Buffalo for at least 30 more years. The House Select Committee investigates the U.S. Capitol insurrection voted Monday to recommend criminal contempt charges for two former Trump advisors. Peter Navarro was Trump's one-time trade advisor, and Dan Scavino, seen here on the right, was Trump's White House Deputy Chief of Staff. Monday's vote came after the committee filed reports Sunday outlining how both men evaded investigators. Recommendation for referral to the Justice Department for contempt of Congress also relates to their refusal to appear for a scheduled deposition. The vote was unanimous and will now head to the full House for a vote. If passed, the referrals will be sent to the Department of Justice, which will decide if there is enough evidence to prosecute. The committee has advanced 3 other criminal referrals. One of them led to the indictment of former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, who faces a criminal trial this summer. That's a look at today's top national stories. We'll be right back.
Rolling up on 617, great time for a little weather on the 7s. Our current conditions from 7th and Rangeline, a very comfortable 51 degrees. Look at that wind gusting at 24 miles per hour at Joplin Regional Airport. We're up to 59 right now in Parsons, as low as 45 in Monette. Got some 60s ranging throughout northeast Oklahoma. Very comfortable up to the north as well. We're in the high 40s in both Fort Scott and Nevada. As the wind works in, we'll be anywhere from about 15 to 20 normally, and then we'll get some gusts of 25 to 30 to the point where we've got wind advisories for our counties there in tan all the way until 10 o'clock tonight. Red flag warnings running until 10 p.m. too for our far western portion of southeast Kansas. No matter where you are, though, it's going to be hard to avoid the wind. As far as what we're looking at nationally, jet stream grabbing some of that southwesterly warmth, taking it right through us. There's a good idea about how we're the recipients of what's coming out of the south right there, but also too this system that's beginning to develop out to our west, going to combo with some of that Gulf moisture right there, provide us with a good amount of instability that results in thunderstorms overnight. Before we get there, great looking afternoon, around 75 degrees with partly sunny skies, cloud cover will kind of remain all day long. As far as the winds go, though, look at this. We're going to bump up here in that 20 to 30 mile an hour range. You get into that orange, that's where we're talking 30 to 40 miles per hour. And then we've got future track with the thunderstorms that'll work that system in from our west. We're going to get some very, very heavy rain with that, really developing, say, about 10, 11 o'clock on our far western counties, working past midnight into Wednesday. Thunder, lightning, high winds, even the slight possibility of some hail as it moves through. And it will affect tomorrow morning's commute as well. Even if you're on that portion where it's tapered off, by the time you leave the house, watch out for those roads that you know that flood in your neighborhood, because it's going to last all the way into the afternoon. And we find ourselves in that low category on the severe thunderstorm risk map as this thing works from south central Texas all the way up to northern Iowa. All right there, and so we're right in the heart of it. And like I said, that indicates not only the high winds, but also possibility of some hail to go along with it. Another side note, our temperatures are going to drastically drop. We'll take a look at the national picture here and give you an idea about how that thing formulates there overnight, and then as it pushes off toward the Mississippi on Wednesday. Look at those cooler temperatures drop in on us to the point where we're talking about the 40s on Wednesday, coming off of 75, 76 for today. Then as we get into Thursday, stabilize a little bit. Anything that we see Thursday is just going to be slight showers, and they're going to be very scattered, not widespread. A little bit of a warm up on Friday, but then Friday night into Saturday, additional rainfall as well. So after we kick into gear here after midnight, we do have a little bit of a wet week left as we wrap up March and begin April. Actor Ice-T putting criminals away on the show Law & Order, but he was looking for some Law & Order after his latest trip to the gas station. Jeannie Moose has the story.
The actor Ice-T is best known for playing a tough NYPD detective who doesn't coddle perps.
I'm not going to chase you. I will shoot your ass from right here.
So it was odd to read Ice-T posting as a victim on Twitter. I was robbed at a gas station in New Jersey last night. After my hands stopped trembling, I managed to call the cops. The police asked me if I knew who did it. I said yes. It was pump number 9. We were all special victims of Ice-T's joke that went viral. LOL, I was so concerned for him too. Damn you, Ice-T. Someone else chimed in, "Sir, can you identify the perp from these mug shots of oil company logos?" Ice-T's joke inspired memes of prices at the pump. I got robbed at Office Max yesterday. Some accused Ice-T of robbery, stealing the joke that someone else had originated online. Wouldn't it be nice if Ice-T could put gas prices on ice like he does criminals?
First, spit that lollipop out before I smack it out your mouth.
If only we could apply a little Law & Order to lock down prices at the pump. Jeannie Moose, CNN, New York.
Be right back with Health Watch coming up right after this.
Topping Health Watch this morning, cases of the flu are on the rise across the U.S. and new research out of Britain shows being hospitalized with the flu and COVID at the same time could double your risk of dying. Tina Kraus has the story.
After COVID restrictions around the world nearly wiped out the flu last season, the influenza virus is back, and for some, it's a double whammy.
I think if you're unlucky enough to get COVID and flu at the same time, what our evidence tells us is that you're at markedly increased risk of severe illness.
Researchers in Scotland, England, and the Netherlands studied more than 300,000 adults hospitalized with COVID within the last 2 years. Nearly 7,000 of them had COVID along with another viral infection. 227 patients had both COVID and the flu. And Professor Kenneth Bailey says those patients were in the most danger.
We found that if you have COVID and you also test positive for flu in hospital, then your risk of dying is doubled and your risk of needing a life support machine or a ventilator is quadrupled.
1, 2, 3.
Doctors say because both viruses like to attack the same part of the body, the throat, behind the nose, and down into the lungs, testing for the combination is crucial.
important message for doctors is we should test patients in hospital for both COVID and flu.
As both viruses circulate, researchers expect the mixed infection to become more common and say anyone offered vaccines against COVID or the flu should get them. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
The new findings have been published in The Lancet. Researchers found the odds of children having asthma or eczema were significantly higher when mothers used disinfectants 1 to 6 times a week compared to mothers who never used them. The highest rate was among mothers who use disinfectants daily, 26% greater for asthma and 29% greater for eczema. Researchers say the diabetes drug metformin, when used by men trying to conceive a child, can raise the risk of birth defects. A study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine urges men who take metformin to consult with their doctor before trying to conceive a child. Scientists from Australia and the UK say naps help preschool-age children better remember the sounds of letters. Researchers say that recall of knowledge helped children who nap sound out and read unfamiliar words. It wasn't just for their teachers to get a break. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
As we get ready for a warm Tuesday afternoon, our temperature is going to be up into the 70s here when we top out. Remember, we've got wind advisories for portions of southeast Kansas, and then the farther west that you work, we have red flag warnings. So we're extremely windy, extremely dry, which sounds kind of weird because we're going to be talking about thunderstorms and all the rain we're going to get overnight. But right now, we're beginning to see the Gulf moisture work its way in, thanks in part to a good southerly jet stream. So on the left-hand side of your screen, we'll watch the storm system develop. Really begins about 10, 11 o'clock tonight out to the far west. And then after we approach midnight, we see it spread into portions of northeast Oklahoma and through southwest Missouri. Not only the heavy rain to go along with the thunder and the lightning, but also too, as this works through all the way into Wednesday afternoon, also slight chance for hail when you get into that low category on the severe thunderstorm risk map. Give you an idea here as it moves through. Watch also, you'll notice a little bit of a cold front working in. We're going to be down to the 40s there on Wednesday as well. Be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Coming up, the 4 states honor the lives of a mother and her 2-year-old daughter in Mercy Park.
While we're going to have a warm Tuesday afternoon, thunderstorms work in from the west. Follow that up with a cold front. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Webb City looks to voters to approve an $11 million bond for improvements on a middle and high school.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, let's go to Michael Hayslip and the weather that looks just darling outside.
Good looking Tuesday morning, though. 51 degrees is where we stand over 7th and Range Line. Very warm for a late March morning. Sunrise at 7:08, and we're already pushing anywhere from mid-40s all the way up to 60s. In northeast Oklahoma. It is going to be a windy one, a blustery one, no matter where you are, to the point where we've got wind advisories indicated in tan, red flag warnings out of the western part of southeast Kansas as we get a little of this southwesterly warmth that also grabs some Gulf moisture, presents us with instability that is ripe for thunderstorm activity. Top out around 75 this afternoon. Absolutely delightful before all of the storms work in, but no matter where you are, we're ranging anywhere from 20 to 35 miles per hour wind-wise. Here we go. Build out to the west right there. Right after midnight is when we see it cross the state line into southwest Missouri. Thunder, lightning, and heavy rain going to come down along with the high winds that will last us all the way into Wednesday afternoon. Slight chance for even some hail overnight, and then watch those temperatures drop. It's going to be chilly after the storm rolls through, dropping into the 40s on Wednesday.
All right. Well, for today anyway, open up those windows.
Afternoon's going to be great.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Michael. Well, the community mourns the tragic loss of a mother and her 2-year-old daughter. 4 states gathered in Joplin's Mercy Park last night to say goodbye to 27-year-old Taylor Shute and her 2-year-old daughter, Kessie Crawford, who were killed Saturday night during a standoff in Baxter Springs, Kansas. Prayer vigil for Chute and her daughter took place at 7:30 p.m. All members of the public were allowed to attend. The cold weather rule is coming to an end this week in Kansas and Missouri. Starting Friday, April 1st, any residents who are behind on electric and natural gas utility bills could be subject to disconnection of service. Cold weather rule goes into effect in several states from November 1st through March 31st. It's designed to prevent utility shutoffs during the coldest parts of the year. Oklahoma's policy doesn't have a set time frame. In the Sooner State, utility companies cannot disconnect customers if temperatures are 32 degrees or below during the day, or 20 or below at night, or if the predicted heat index is 101 or greater. Webb City R7 School District is asking voters to approve an $11 million school bond. The bond would fund improvements at the high school, including renovations of science classrooms, construction of a virtual learning lab, and a new family and consumer sciences classroom, and renovations of the Cardinal Theater. It would also fund the construction of an ADA-compliant outdoor space for PE classes at the middle school.
Actually, they're in the junior high right now, so consecutively, it's coming our way. Now, I can tell you that the classes that are coming up are very similar in those class sizes, and we already know that we have housing being developed in the district right now that is going to continue to add to that.
If approved, the district's current tax levy would stay the same. This bond will be decided next week, April 5th. Pittsburgh Community Child Care Learning Center is celebrating 50 years of educating kids. The center offers child care for kids between 1-year-old and kindergarten. On Monday, they hosted an event for community members and former students and families to look back on all the history. Officials say the center was the first child care center in Pittsburgh.
Exciting. I feel like that's a milestone to be the first child care center in Pittsburgh and to still be here and be going strong. We have a long waiting list, and so we're definitely needed, and the child care is definitely needed in the community.
Two of my children went there, and definitely a wonderful place. The center is at 502 East 20th Street in Pittsburgh. Safe House Crisis Center in Pittsburgh is hosting its 11th annual Bags to Riches online fundraiser. There are several items up for auction, including purses, jewelry, and signed Chiefs memorabilia. The center also has pictures of local dogs on their website, and you can vote for your favorite. All proceeds from the fundraiser will support the women in the shelter.
Community supporting our fundraising efforts, but they're also supporting our agency, and they're also really supporting the victims we're serving.
The auction runs through April 5th. You can find a link to the auction on our website at koamnewsnow.com. Today, back in 1973, the U.S. withdraws from Vietnam. 2 months after signing the Vietnam Peace Agreement, the last U.S. combat troops leave South Vietnam as Hanoi frees the remaining American prisoners that were held in North Vietnam. In Saigon, some 7,000 U.S. Department of Defense civilian employees remained behind to aid South Vietnam in conducting what looked to be a fierce and ongoing war with communist North Vietnam. Due to the extended length of the war, though, the high number of casualties and exposure of war crimes completed by the U.S. public, support for the war spiraled downward. Lyndon B. Johnson authorized the beginning of peace talks with Vietnam while opting out of running for re-election, citing what he perceived to be his responsibility in creating a perilous national division over Vietnam.
Future track has temperatures into the mid-70s later on this afternoon. Eventually, thunderstorms working in from the west overnight. And not only the heavy rain to go along with the thunder and the lightning, but also possibility for hail as this rolls through. Get out and enjoy the afternoon, because after a day in the 70s, the cold front follows the thunderstorms, so our temperatures fall into the 40s.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. Pedestrian accidents are on the rise. We'll have why and who the biggest perpetrators are. Plus, competition can be healthy. However, there's times where it can get too competitive. I'm looking at you, Monopoly. Yes. Certain family members not allowed to play it anymore. Today, we want to know, do you In Consumer Watch this morning, pedestrian deaths have been on the rise in recent years. Researchers looking for a reason why discovered certain vehicles are more likely to be involved in these types of accidents. Laura Podesta reports.
A memorial on this Los Angeles street corner marks the place where a child and his babysitter died tragically earlier this month. Police say Alihia Morales was walking 2-year-old Julian across the street when an SUV hit them while making a left turn. He had so much life to live. We had so many plans for him, Julian's father said. The accident happened as a new report shows that SUVs and pickup trucks are more likely than cars to hit pedestrians while making turns.
When a pedestrian was killed at an intersection, an SUV was twice as likely to be turning left. A van was 3 times as likely to be turning left, and pickups were nearly 4 times as likely to be turning left.
Jessica Cicchino with the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety says it's not clear why, but she believes visibility may play a role.
One of the contenders is the A-pillar, that area right in the front of your vehicle between the windshield and your front windows that can be a blind spot in the front of your vehicle.
Last year, almost 80% of new vehicles sold were trucks or SUVs. That's up from just over 50% in 2010. At the same time, pedestrian deaths increased, up 59% between 2009 and 2020.
If you have a larger vehicle, you would want to keep in mind that there might be times when you can't see pedestrians as well, particularly when you're turning. So make sure you take that extra look.
Researchers say more studies are needed to find out exactly what's causing the issue and if design changes can fix it. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
A study from Consumer Reports last year found higher hoods on trucks and SUVs can also obstruct a driver's view of pedestrians in certain situations. Well, stocks move higher to start the week. On Monday, the Dow added 94. The Nasdaq jumped 185. The S&P 500 gained 32. Investors continue to monitor the situation between Russia and Ukraine. Peace talks resume today between the two nations. So far, negotiations have had little success other than establishing humanitarian corridors for refugees. Disney says it will fight Florida's controversial new law, HB 1557, also known as the Don't Say Gay bill. Governor Ron DeSantis signed it into law yesterday. It forbids instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade. Disney vowed to work to repeal the law as it stands up for the LGBTQ+ community. And the founder of FedEx is stepping down as CEO. Fred Smith, who started the shipping company in 1971, will become executive chairman. In a statement, Smith says he wants to focus on sustainability, innovation, and public policy. Taking over is COO Raj Subramanian, who's been with FedEx since 1991. Hope I said his name right. That's it for Consumer Watch. Let's go over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Subramanian. We've been waiting for him to take over for a while. We've been in. What a run by Fred Smith. Like that is pretty well because he's been talking about ducking out for. He was talking about it pre-pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, he's like, no, today, this is not the right time to leave this company because of everything that we're going to have to go through.
Right.
A true success story right there. Really written a couple great books as well. This morning on the KOM News Now Insta Poll, talking a little bit about competition as Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, laying claim to a very special cheer team who happens to be one of the best in the world. It's a 12-member team that includes children on the autism spectrum, including kids that also have Down syndrome, some of them hearing impaired. They all bring these unique characteristics together to form a synchronized unit that is going to a national cheer competition. Our question for you this morning is, do you compete in anything? And right now, while the majority say 48% saying nothing, we do have 17% split between board games and video games. You can take part each and every morning, either connect to us via our Facebook page or go directly to the poll, komnewsnow.com/vote. Come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but first, let's check in with Gail.
Hello to you, I'm Gail Kane. Coming up on CBS Mornings, award-winning director Judd Apatow talks with us about his new book of conversations with some of the most exciting names in comedy. Look at that title, Sicker in the Head. That's coming right up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Alfred Jimerson. Master Sergeant Alfred Jimerson served in the Army from 1968 to 1969 in Vietnam. He earned air medals and all Vietnam medals during his service. His hometown, Galena, Kansas. We thank you, today's four-state hero, Alfred Jimerson.
Birthday list begins with Winston Wosel. That's a cool shirt right there. I love that shirt, Winston. I don't know where you found that one, man. He is turning the big number 4 in Joplin with happy birthday wishes coming from Nana.
And we've got the Nance twins celebrating. First up, Hunter and then River. Both of them turning 6 years old today.
On to Gerard. Sun's out.
Guns
That's
out.
right. That's right. Shane Twigger is turning the big number 7, and as Shane flexes, he gets birthday wishes from Mama and the family.
I love that picture. That's great. All right, we've got Chloe Coots turning 10 years old this year. Chloe attends Southeast Elementary. Hope you have a great birthday today.
Jalen Earl turning 17. Jalen, a very happy birthday to you as she celebrates in Jasper.
And in Columbus, Stephen Kidd celebrating birthday number 35 this year. Currently in Springfield. Happy birthday from the family here in Columbus.
Amy Geyer is turning 38. A very happy birthday to Miss Amy in Girard.
All right. In Chautauqua, celebrating number 43 today, it's Angie Connard. Happy birthday.
We've got Chris Richardson celebrating a 71st birthday. A very happy birthday to Chris in Joplin. And our good friends John and Janice Gaither. They are celebrating an anniversary in Columbus. John and Janice, congratulations and a very happy anniversary to you. Here's where you can send them into. Birthdays at KOAMTV.com. You can also go to our website at KOAMNewsNow.com. Now here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right, you can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club. All you have to do is go to our website and sign up, and once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
We got a little time, so tell you what, that's what we have over 7th and Rangeline right now for current conditions. And because we have the power of live TV at our disposal, let's do this. Let's see what it looks like off to the east/northeast right there. Yeah, we get a little sliver, just a little sliver. Officially, sunrise is, 19 minutes away. We're 19 minutes away right now over Joplin. 51 degrees, very, very, very mild morning. I mean, our temperatures are just absolutely nice for this time of year. It is a tad bit windy. We'll dive into our wind here, but first let's start with our temperatures. We're even throwing up some 60s in northeast Oklahoma. Quite a wide variety, though, of temperatures. Monette at 45, Parsons at 59, and then you've got Lamar at 49. So we're just about here, there, and everywhere on the old thermometer. Our wind tracker, as it works in from the southeast, coming in pretty good clip right now, to the point where we've got wind advisories for our counties in tan, and then we've got red flag warnings indicated out in the western portion of southeast Kansas. You can tell that wind, it's getting on it just about everywhere. So even if you live there in the central or the eastern portion of our highlighted counties, please know it's still going to be very, very blustery outside. As far as the national perspective goes, what we've got cooking down here is we've got some Gulf moisture that is beginning to work its way right along the jet stream right here. And it's going to combo with this low pressure that's sitting right there, just making its way over the Rockies. So when those combine, that's going to bring us thunderstorms for tonight into tomorrow morning. Here's our weather trend for the next 24 hours. Top out around 75, 76 degrees this afternoon. So I tell you what, get outside and enjoy some fresh air. That is for sure. And be ready for anywhere from 20 to 30, maybe even 40 mile an hour winds out to the west. Speaking of the west, that is where the thunderstorms develop for tonight. We'll be good for the afternoon and evening, but then as we approach, say, 10, 11 o'clock, there it is, stretching in from the west and the south, working its way across the state line overnight into Wednesday morning. Heavy rains, high wind, even possibility of some hail to go along with it. Now on top of that, look at our temperatures. My goodness, bottom's going to fall out here. We're going to sink down to the 40s on Wednesday. Stabilize on Thursday. Additional rainfall headed our way Friday night into Saturday, and more KOM morning news right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. The 4 states gathered in Joplin's Mercy Park last night to say goodbye to 27-year-old Taylor Shute and her 2-year-old daughter, Kessie Crawford, who were killed Saturday night during a standoff in Baxter Springs, Kansas. The prayer vigil for Shute and her daughter took place at 7:30, and all members of the public were allowed to attend. Americans everywhere feeling the pinch at the pump as fuel prices continue to rise. The trucking industry in particular is feeling the effects. The American Trucking Association says more than 70% of freight is transported via trucks, so high fuel costs can lead to higher prices everywhere. Joplin-based CFI has nearly 4,000 trucks, so they've found ways to lessen the burden of fuel costs. The company is also buying 750 fuel-efficient tractors this year to lessen their carbon footprint and save on fuel. Pittsburgh Community Child Care Learning Center is celebrating 50 years of educating kids. The center offers child care for kids between 1-year-old and kindergarten. On Monday, they hosted an event for community members and former students and families to look back on all the history. Officials say the center was the first child care center in Pittsburgh. The center is at 502 East 20th Street in Pittsburgh. Safe House Crisis Center in Pittsburgh hosts its 11th annual Bags to Riches online fundraiser. Items up for auction include purses, jewelry, and signed Chiefs memorabilia. Also, pictures of local dogs are on their website, and you can vote for your favorite. All proceeds from the fundraiser will support the women in the shelter. The auction runs through April 5th. You can find a link to the auction on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Roll Future Track one more time with afternoon temps up into the mid-70s. That's hard to beat, even though it's going to be a windy one. Remember tonight, here we go. Get started about 10, 11 o'clock out to the west. Roll all the way through Wednesday morning with the heavy rain, thunder, lightning, high wind, possibility of some hail. It's going to be an interesting one that'll carry us really to just about Wednesday afternoon as our temperatures then drop after the thunderstorms down to the 40s.
All right, well, this one sounds like a good one, Michael. Coming up today at noon, we're making sweet and sour meatballs in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Morning news continues on KOAM. CBS Mornings coming up next as Anthony Mason talks with award-winning comedian Hannah Gadsby about her new memoir and creating joy and healing through comedy.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. This morning, owning pets are wonderful. However, the cost of owning them are never easy. We're going to have more on a study that sheds light on the cost of owning those pets.
Plus, our very own Jalen Banks takes us to Joplin, where he talks to a trucking company about the rising cost of fuel. Those stories over on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Wraps it up for this Tuesday. Get ready for the thunderstorms tonight. Do me a favor. Be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we're going to do it again today at noon.